Hello and welcome to another WARCRAFT 3 podcast. Today we are going to talk about Naga and how to use Naga when playing human. So of course this podcast is not going to be exhaustive because WARCRAFT 3 is all about creating your own strategies. So the possibilities to use Naga are almost infinite indeed, so you can basically play the Naga in the way that you prefer. But the goal of this podcast is to analyze a few strategies that you can successfully apply by using the Naga as first hero or as a second hero, which seems to be quite a common choice lately. So first let's see the most uncommon one, so to speak, which is to play Naga first as human. It's definitely not meta, I would say, because the standard is to play Archmage first, or maybe even Mountain King first. But it is possible to play Naga first, and here's what you can do. So this has been inspired by playing Neddies. I've been playing a lot of Neddies recently, and while playing human, sometimes I was meeting opponents who were essentially starting with the Naga and making a lots of footmen. They get fast level 2 and then they run inside your base with like 5 or maybe 6 footmen and they start going for peasants. So the goal is to use the Naga arrow, the freezing arrow, to slow down the peasants and quickly kill them and try to do as much damage as possible in order to weaken your opponent's economy. Then when your opponent defends, TPs in or runs into his base to deflect this kind of push, you essentially TP out with your Naga and try to save as many footmen as possible. In the meanwhile, of course, you are teching to tier 2 and fast teching to tier 3 because you want to get griffins. So the goal of this entire strategy is to keep the opponent distracted with the Naga, deal as much economy damage as you can with the Naga and those footmen, which you will have on defend as soon as possible. You gotta research the defend upgrade to add more sustain to your foodies army. And you want to tech very fast to get those griffins out very fast. And if you execute it properly and if you manage to deal enough damage into your opponent's base, you should delay him long enough that you can finally have a fight with your griffins and win it if your opponent fails to read what you're doing. Because of course, if he understands what you're doing and reacts in time, he can go double Graffian Aviary and Dragon Hawks and essentially kill all of your griffins. So it's not an easy strategy to pull off, because we could say it's kind of cheesy in the sense that if your opponent reacts fast enough and knows what you're doing, he can easily beat this strategy, because griffins get easily countered by double Graffian Aviaries, Dragon Hawks, or even just one workshop into mass copters can deal a lot of damage. But if your opponent is blindly going tier 2 priest and breakers, you won't have much of an army when you finally hit him with griffins, if you manage to do enough damage inside his base. So I would say the failure of the success of this strategy relies entirely on how much damage you are able to do inside of his base. If you only kill like 1, 2, 3, even 4 peasants, you won't deal enough damage to his economy, and your strategy will fail, especially if it gets a few towers up and gets an expansion and you don't scout it in time. So it's not an easy strategy to pull off, but if you manage to do enough damage inside his base, and also you react in time when you see that he's going for an expansion, if he is going for an expansion, and cancel the towers and deny his economic advantage, you won't have much of an army when you face him with griffins. Then you will quickly try to snipe his heroes, which is kinda easy to do with griffins. Kill his archmage or his mountain king, kill his second hero, and then you are in a very good spot. Now you can safely get your own expansion, get your economy going, and essentially counter everything that he is producing. So definitely a viable strategy, which can be very, very annoying for your opponent, but you gotta execute it well to make it work. So if you like this strat, you can give it a go. Then you can of course play standard with Archmage first and use the Naga as a second hero, and that's another strategy that is supposed to counter Archmage and Panda, because as you know, one of the most typical strategies that humans use is going Archmage first, Panda second into mass priest and mass breakers, and using the Panda, creeping the Panda to level 3 and using the amazing area of effect that level 2 Breath of Fire has to kill priests and do a lot of damage to your opponent economy as well. But of course, if you manage to attack fast enough and get your Naga as soon as it gets the Panda, or maybe even a little bit earlier, that would be perfect, you can use your Naga to deal a lot of pressure to your opponent, because while the Panda needs to be crept to level 3 in order to be strong and powerful, the Naga is pretty much awesome as it gets when you buy it at the tavern. In other words, level 1 Naga overrides a level 1 Panda because of the Frost Arrow. So the Frost Arrow can guarantee you a lot of kills if you use it properly and manage not to lose your Naga immediately, of course. While the Panda, when it gets out of the tavern, essentially it won't be able to kill anything, because level 1 Breath of Fire kinda sucks. Unless you are playing Night Elf and you're playing mass archers. In that case, Breath of Fire can be amazing, even at level 1, just because archers die so fast to the Breath of Fire. But we are talking about Human Mirror now, and so you will have Footman, and level 1 Naga plus Archmage and Water Elementals is better at killing Footman than a level 1 Panda. So again, this strategy, I've seen it being used at professional level, and it worked very well, I must say. But of course you gotta have good timings with it. You gotta know exactly what you're doing. You wanna trade a lot when you have your level 3 Archmage and your level 1 Naga. You wanna get a lot of kills, you wanna gather to level 3 as soon as possible, so you can skill a level 2 Forked Lightning, which will allow you to get even more kills. And your goal here is to essentially kill a lot more priests, a lot more footmen than your opponent, so you can get better levels on your heroes, you can get a larger army and eventually overcome your opponent by sheer numbers.